What's up, moviegoers and true believers? Welcome to another episode of the Real Comics Podcast. I'm your host, Voodoo57, and with me, as always, is my good friend and partner in crime, Speedy G33. Speedy G, what's up, man?
Not much, just another night of podcasting. And may the force be with you.
That's right. May the 4th be with you, everybody. If you are celebrating, I am. I've got my Star Wars shirt on here. I can't really... Kind of hard to show everybody. The shirt.
Team Cap.
So he's wearing the Team Cap shirt. I'm still recovering from my early preview of Captain America. Thus leads us into our episode this evening titled A Cap Recap. Tonight, after we discuss some news, we are going to talk about the Captain America trilogy, starting with the first Avenger into Winter Soldier, and then we will go and give you a great review for Civil War next week. But tonight we are talking about the first two Cap movies, and also we're going to give you a little bit of nerd news right now. So, anything else you got to say, man? You still going Team Cap, huh? Not Team Iron Man? I was totally Team Iron Man.
Yeah, just because you got free tickets.
That's right. Hey, quick shout out to Tucson Comic Con for hooking me up with free tickets to see Captain America Civil War last night. That was great. I met some great people.
You're a sellout, just like Stark.
That's right. I met some great people there, some great guys. Took a couple of little videos. There was also a girl and her husband there. Her name was Michelle. She had this great Iron Man dress, but she was slinging a Captain America purse. Very cute, very cool people out there. Excited to see it. And I'll post a little video about that. Hopefully by tomorrow, if not by tomorrow, Friday for sure. So look for that as well. Hey, but what do you say we get into some news to start there, Speedy G?
Yep.
Let's see. First topic, and I don't know how to necessarily pronounce this guy's name, but first thing we noticed on the old Twitter sphere there is that Seth Graham, he's saying that Smith is leaving the Flash movie. How big of a deal is this?
It's not as big of a deal as they're making it out to be, I believe. I mean, it's the same old creative differences. He is a first-time director when it comes to something like this, and maybe they just couldn't get on the same page. And everyone's talking about, it's because Batman vs. Superman didn't do so well, so therefore there's more studio interference. I'm not necessarily sure that's true. I'm sure the studio is keeping an eye on it more maybe than they did before because of what happened, but the Flash movie to me was always going to be a very difficult movie to do anyway because of the success of the TV show. So there's going to be special challenges anyway when it comes to that movie. But it's a very important movie because the Flash is that character that allows you to explain, like, well, why did you do that? Well, it's because Flash can travel through time, and he did that. So he's your nice little way out. So he's an important character. So maybe they're pushing it back. That could be another thing. Maybe they've decided that Flash can go to the back because we don't want to compete with the TV show. Let the TV show's popularity go down. We'll introduce Flash really strongly in Justice League and get a great fan reaction to that. Then we'll move forward with the movie.
Generally, from my end, from the movie side of it, when a director leaves and they replace them, it's generally not the biggest deal of all. To me, it's generally not. There's either creative differences or whatnot. A good example is Ant-Man. There was a lot of controversy over Ant-Man when it came out. Wright was out, and they brought in the other guy. And Ant-Man turned out to be a good movie. Not a great movie, but it was a good movie. And, as long as you have the material there and the people that were working on it and the cast that they had, definitely it's generally not a big deal. However, in this situation, I'm reading a lot of stuff on my end about the money that the Batman vs. Superman movie fell short on and their expectations. And we'll get into that a little bit of some more news that we have in here. And those falling expectations caused people to get jittery reactions. And I think this director got nervous and bolted due to some of that. And it might have been pressure.
I just, maybe he wanted to tell a story they weren't going to allow him to tell. Like maybe he had a different vision and they were okay with that. But then because of what happened, they're like, well, we need to listen to the fans and we need to tell a different kind of story. Right. And he just decided, I mean, look at the director that left Thor Dark World.
Right.
She left. Now she's doing Wonder Woman. So it's just sometimes it just doesn't work. And I guess to me, the biggest story that came out of it is the nonsense that started coming out from some of these sites. And I don't even want to talk those stories because we all knew if you had any sense, you knew they were a bunch of speculation and lies. They started talking about all the other directors and saying that there was problems in all the other projects.
Well, this is clearly
a bunch of crap.
Yeah, this is clearly not. We're talking about a Josh Trank situation, right?
Oh,
this
no.
is for the Fantastic Four. This is something completely different. He just stepped away from the project. Somebody should slide in if there are no other studio issues, and it should be fine.
It happens.
Yeah, it does. It does. That's the way I look at it.
I look at it as from DC Warner Brother, they're proactive. Maybe it wasn't going to work and they didn't want to put out a bad film. From the other guy's point of view, maybe it's like they're not going to let me make the film I want, so why should I hang around and be miserable? In the end, as long as they, and it seems like they're being very professional, nobody's slamming anybody. No one's talking about it. Everyone's going to be fine. Everyone comes back. Look at Jon Favreau. Jon Favreau really left with a bad taste in his mouth after Iron Man 2. They hijacked that film from him, and he was very unhappy. He went through some difficult contract disputes with Disney. Now, here we come all this time later, coming off of Jungle Book. He's going to executive produce the Infinity War movies, and he's talking about maybe directing another Marvel movie. So as long as everyone stays, professional.
Copacetic. You don't burn any bridges. That's the big key. Don't burn any bridges.
Comes along that is more, more of your project. Yeah.
Movie shit happens. Is that what we're saying here?
Yeah, movie shit happens.
Cool. Well, leading into it for our next story, Fox is apparently pulling out of a hall in the hotel for the San Diego Comic-Con. How big of a deal is that? I think that is huge.
It is huge, and I've gone back and forth on my thoughts on that. When I first heard it, I thought Fox was being idiots because they have a tendency to be idiots. I understand their argument, but it's because their Comic-Con doesn't do that good of a job of protecting this stuff from leaking. And you say, well, how can they do it? Well, at the Disney ones and at the New York Comic-Con, stuff doesn't leak. So it's something San Diego's not doing. That's one thing. And then on the other hand, I think there's more to this story than we know. It's not just the fact that the trailer leaked. There's been a lot of talk about how the Comic-Con in San Diego refusing to step up to the plate, building a larger convention center because it has grown to the point where it's too big for the convention center.
I was there many years ago, and it wasn't half the size.
They need to build more hotels for this, and San Diego's not willing to commit. And then people tried to spin it, well, Disney's probably not going to show up either. Now, that's been a topic for a while, that Disney wasn't going to show up to Comic-Con. And that's because Disney but that's for a whole different reason. Yeah, they're going to do their own con in LA. They don't need San Diego Comic-Con anymore. Between Pixar, Star Wars, the Marvel franchises, and now the live Disney action stuff.
Yeah.
What do they need Comic-Con?
At this point right now, they have, what is it? I think it's called D3, which is the Disney Comic-Con. Marvel has its own con or invite. It's kind of more, I would call it more of an Apple
event. More of an industry.
Yeah, I call it an Apple event. Because what they do is it's an industry thing. They invite certain people to come and find out what's new and what's coming. And then, of course, Star Wars has its own day. That's Star Wars Celebration in Anaheim, and it includes, a marathon run and all that other fun stuff. So I totally agree with you. They do not need San Diego. So if they don't show up to me, I'm not like, oh my God,
But see, you just brought me back to the point with the Star Wars thing, and that's where I was going to go.
Right.
Star Wars knows that all the arguments that Fox is making. Well, what if it leaks? Well, then let's just not worry about it and let's stream it. I don't think anybody who was at Celebration when the trailer dropped felt cheated because all of us got to see it on our computers and everything and our phones at the same time. None of them were like, "Oh, that's messed up." Why did
I call BS. I call BS. Best marketing move ever was done by Marvel. When the Marvel trailer for what was it? Was it an Age of Ultron leaked out? Mm-hmm. The first thing they did was they latched onto that leak and they said, "All right, we're going to post it and we're going to say, hey, thanks a lot. Somebody from Hydra took over the account and leaked the footage." Shut up. That was brilliant. brilliant, and they played it off, and they released a good copy, a good clean copy, and it was amazing. It was awesome.
Well, but see, that's another one of Fox's complaints is that what they showed at Comic-Con was not ready for the masses. And so therefore, when it leaked, they got egg on their face because it didn't look good.
Man.
But I look at it as, well, then don't release it.
Yeah, so don't bring it.
You know what the date of Comic-Con is. It's not like, oh, shit. You know the date. So do what you can do. Again, going back to Star Wars, at Comic-Con, Star Wars didn't release any new footage. They felt like, okay, we don't have anything. We don't want to release it right now. Let's do something different. Let's bring out the whole cast and have a cool Q&A and then take them across the street for a comic.
Well, actually, and not only did they do that, they did release, while it wasn't necessarily footage, it was a very well put together vignette, remember? Mm-hmm. See, ask the Star Wars nerd, he remembers. That vignette was beautiful. Yeah.
So if you don't have any new footage, don't force it out there and then get mad when the fans complain about it.
Yeah, but that's Fox. That's Fox. I think we could go all night on this, but that's Fox.
And the last thing before we change the thing is before I finish it. So what Fox just says the hell with Comic-Con. Where the hell are they going to go? They don't have enough to make their own con.
Yeah, exactly.
Where are they going to go? Disney's not going to invite them to their con. So it's going to be like, okay, go, don't do anything.
You miss out. You miss out on the hype.
He's not talking about leaving San Diego. DC's probably like, cool. Well, then it will be a full-on DC con, and we'll have a blast with this.
Yeah, so for sure. Agreed. All right, great topics. I like that. This is going to be a good start to the show here. I like it. All right, on to topic number 3. Bryan Singer addresses the apocalypse look. What do you have to say about that?
I call it a little bullshit.
Okay, so what did you read? What did you see on the interweb there that got you to that one?
He started to say that the effects weren't done, and he mistakenly released the picture to Entertainment Weekly that it looked too purple, and kind of say like, well, the fans just weren't patient enough because we were still going to fix them. I don't think so. I think that was kind of the look they were going for, and the fans corrected it. Uh-huh. And instead of being hard on the fans, you should be happy. Again, this is Fox sometimes. They don't listen to the fans. They think they know better than the fans. So maybe by you do it leaking at con, the fans tell you it looks like shit. They tell you it looks like shit in Entertainment Weekly. You correct it, and now in these last 2 trailers, the fans are like, this is awesome. I want to see this. I'm excited for this. Instead of being happy that maybe the fans just saved you from having a turd. They fixed your villain for you.
Right.
But that's Fox. I just call bullshit. I don't believe him.
All right, so we've had 3 Fox stories, and this isn't. I mean, put them together. This isn't. I know, but I'm just saying this isn't. This isn't looking good. It sounds like they're doing what Fox does, which is screwing up the product most of the time.
You know how I am about Fox, but 2 things are giving me hope. The X-Men movie looks good. It looks like they finally listened. Singer finally learned. It looks like an X-Men movie. Now, when we see the movie, we'll see. Days of Future Past had some cool scenes until I actually saw it. And then Deadpool. They got it right with Deadpool. So I'm thinking, well, they got one right. Was that just blind luck, Or maybe has there been a kind of shift and we can see something? So.
Right. I don't know. I'm actually going to jump to the last one you put in because it ties in. I think I'm going to move up one.
A little bit.
So let's go ahead and talk about the New Mutant characters real quick, since we're talking about.
The reason I had it afterwards is the cast that the guy who's developing it has kind of suggested. What I like about it is something that I've talked to you a lot about, how Fox has been sitting on a gold mine. All this news about whitewashing, so white Oscars, all this stuff, right? Not enough roles for females, not enough roles for ethnicities. There's not these inclusive casts, on and on and on. The X-Men, the mutant universe, has it all. They have strong women. They have strong women of color. They have strong men of color. They have gay characters. They have straight characters. They have it all. And they're already there. They're already popular. You don't have to change anybody to get to everyone all in the hole. Well, why'd you change this or change that? Why'd you make Johnny Storm black? All that garbage that you have to go through that you don't have to do with the X-Men because they're already there.
Right.
So Fox is sitting on this gold mine where the other two, that's the one thing they're getting the most crap for, DC and Marvel, is trying to come up with these characters when there's not a lot.
Right.
There just isn't. In the Avengers universe, there's not a lot of black characters. There's not as many female characters. The DC universe, there's not as many female characters, even though there's Wonder Woman, who's easily the biggest. Then after that, there's a huge drop off. It's all there. And so they're talking about the characters are talking. You have a Brazilian, you have a Native American, you have a character from Ireland. If Storm is in it, you have an African. She's from Africa. You have a Russian girl. I mean, there's some strong characters. It's a very inclusive cast, which is everyone's bitching and moaning for right now, and it's sitting there. And finally, I'm excited that Fox, if they do this right, they can really show everybody it can be done. And then
right. Are you talking about the supposed premise to the TV? Or where will we see these characters?
The director on his Instagram today, I don't know if he's the director or the writer, excuse me, he tweeted 5 pictures,
right?
Kind of hints of the 5 characters he wants. I'll send you the link after this.
For which?
For the New Mutants.
Okay, for the New Mutant show. Okay.
Mm-hmm. This is I don't believe this is a TV. This is a movie, I thought. I might be wrong.
I thought it was television. I thought it was television, but that's why I was very curious to where we were going to see this.
I hope it's not just television. I hope it's a movie. Because that kills my whole thing why I was excited how they're finally doing something.
Well, you brought this up. My concern would be that they would force it for the movies, but not for television. It would be easier for them to get away with it in their minds on television than they would for the movies. Because remember, there was a lot of talk about Iceman, Bobby there, maybe possibly being...
Okay.
Making him gay.
I can explain that one to you. And I think Bryan Singer missed the boat on that because of all people that probably could have done a good job with this, kind of weave this in nice, who would relate, would probably be Mr. Singer. He would have some insight.
Well, considering, yes.
There is a storyline. One of the things that the X-Men do a lot is they travel in time.
Right.
And Beast gets this wild idea to go back and get his young self when he was young and the original team, and bring them to the future to kind of help solve a problem. I don't want to get into the whole thing. We'll talk forever. So he brings to the future a young Jean Grey, a young Cyclops, a young Iceman. But the most important of the two for our thing is Jean Grey and Bobby. Bobby's acting like he normally does. Bobby's very, flirtatious, very, aggressive with the girls, cheesy pickup lines. That's how he's always been. There's a moment where he says some cheesy pickup line to one of the other female X-Men, and Jean pulls him aside and says, "Why do you do that?" He's like, "What do you mean, why do I do that?" He goes, "Well, you're gay." He goes, "I'm not gay." And she goes, because her powers became more advanced because she went into the future, that's where it gets kind of hard. But she, in other words, she can read minds when she's not supposed to yet. She goes, "I've read your mind, Bobby, you're gay." And he gets very upset. And of course, he kind of processes it and comes back to her and he goes, "You know what? I am. I think I am."
That's interesting.
And then they kind of left it. They never continued it. They never went anywhere with it.
They're probably afraid to do so.
They probably were. And it's unfortunate. And where I go is, like, if they would have introduced him in this new kind of this reboot that they're doing, they could have had him in there and they could have laid some seeds. And if done properly, he could be an interesting character. And there you have your gay character that people are saying, well, we don't have anyone in these shows that are gay.
Right.
It would have worked. It makes sense. I've heard all the arguments that the way he's so overly aggressive with women and they never works out and stuff like that, kind of that he's closeted and things of that nature. So,
yeah. Well, that may be in the books, but in the movies, he's not. He's very much into.
Well, yeah.
So how would you correct that?
But it never works because
right.
Even in this comic, there's 2 versions of him. There's his self from the past, and then there's his present self that's a grown man. Okay, right. And they don't cross paths and have this discussion. So the grown man version of him is trying to have dates with Kitty Pryde, and it's not working out. For some reason, they always end up. It doesn't work, and they just are friends. It never. So again, it's kind of implying again the thing that he hasn't come to grips to, where he was forced to come to grips to in this other version of himself. He never came
Right.
to grips to with his older version, so he never accepted who he
Well,
was.
that's it. That's interesting. And then to piggyback that, Marvel has said that they have, supposedly they may have their own LBGT person coming to a Marvel movie soon, or at least to a Marvel series. So it'd be interesting to see how they.
That's the problem. They're gonna have to they're gonna have to change somebody, and that's when people get upset. Is when they.
Well, they could introduce some. I think they could go through and introduce somebody if they start soon, like within the next month, in the comic series. Somebody completely different, but I don't know where you would put them.
The only person I'm guessing is it could be on Miss Marvel. They could decide to go with Miss Marvel.
Yeah.
I mean, there's characters. The Young Avengers have people, and the Runaways have some characters. But that's like this next generation of characters, so it's not time for them to come into play yet.
Right. Gotcha.
But the X-Men has them, and that's what I keep going back to. The X-Men has everything.
Just a matter of whether or not they're smart enough to use them, and it's just kind of sad that they don't.
It's the A-Team. That's what we always forget. It's because of what's happened. Marvel doesn't get enough credit for what they did with the C-Team.
Right.
They turned the C-Team into the biggest thing in movies right now.
Right.
And Fox has the A-Team, and Sony had Spider-Man, and DC has Batman and Superman, and it's Marvel winning with the B and C players. It's kind of crazy.
They've done it right, man. They've done it right. All right. So we're going to move on then straight to talking about the Punisher series. That's a go. I'm totally stoked. What do you think?
That's awesome. I mean, props to Bernthal. Is that how you say his name? Bernthal. You know, he earned it, and I think there's some great stories they can tell, and Netflix is the place for it. Yeah, I'm stoked. I think it'll be awesome. You know,
I am super excited. He was my favorite part about the start of that second season of Daredevil. So, totally ready for it, and ready for more.
Mm-hmm. That was great news. The Netflix thing is killing it, and there's a lot of articles today how they're probably not going to be in Civil War, and I'm like, duh. I mean, people still holding on to that they're going to be part of the movies. They're not. They're not. They're not going to go that way. They're both going, and that's okay, because you know what? If you ask me, you can only have one or the other. I'd have the Netflix guys over the movies. I just would.
Yeah, I think early on for me being the movie side of this thing, I kind of wanted that. I think I really did. I was excited. I'm like, oh, we could do this and we could do that. And now that we've headed into a second season, now that Jessica Jones has come and done her own thing, I'm like, no.
Second season
leave it
for her.
Yeah, second season coming for her. Just leave it. Leave it on Netflix. Just leave it there. Let me enjoy it. Let me purge my soul with awesome Marvel stuff on Netflix, waiting for the next movie. And
I don't want them to have to play second fiddle to the superstars that are in the movies. Okay, you know, these actors, they're not as big a name, and they're gonna have to play second fiddle to the, you know, Christopher Evans and, you know, Robert Downey Jr.'s and all these big time actors up there. And I don't want that. You know, let them keep doing what they're doing. You know.
No, for sure. I totally agree. All right, man. Anything else for news that may be not on our list or that's on your mind or anything like that?
Those were the big stories. You know, surprisingly, even with the Star Wars, there wasn't a lot of good Star Wars news today.
No, I think I can tell you. Let me touch on that real quick before we move on. For the Star Wars fan, on May 4th today, it was a lot about the games. Believe it or not, a lot of these old games, Jedi Academy, Sworder, you know, Knights of the Old Republic, all that stuff. If you had a PlayStation or an Xbox, they dropped the purchase price down to $2.45.
Holy shit! I need to go buy some.
Exactly.
I still have my PlayStation. I have my PlayStation 2 because there's games on there.
Yeah, read into it. It was a lot about the games. That was just an example. Me and the kids used to have a copy of, for our old Xbox, the Jedi Academy game, and we would chase each other around like idiots. This was just prior to, I think maybe Halo had just come out. So it was a very similar version of that. We would make our own Jedis and split the screen, and we would chase each other around and slice the crap out of each other, and we would have a blast. So
when the hell is that done? At midnight? Shit.
It might be your podcast up. We're gonna have to get into this podcast. You have to go do some research. But so speaking of that, I tell you what. Let me pull up some information. We are now going to get into talking and discussing about Captain America: The First Avenger and Captain America: The Winter Soldier to get us hyped, or to get you hyped for Civil War, and just kind of what we really want to talk about is kind of to kind of get you move forward, because in my mind, especially, I'm not sure how you think. I mean, you give me your opinion here in just a moment. The Captain America series has been the best by far in the MCU, in my opinion. So I've kind of pushed this piece, and I'm proud that we're doing it. I'm actually excited. So what do you say we get into it here?
I think it is the best right now.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to say. Currently, I think it's the best.
What Guardians does.
This is true. They're right there. They're right there. We'll rank these here in a minute. We'll talk a little bit about it, and we may even touch on a little bit of Iron Man just to level things out. So let's get into it. Let's start by talking about Captain America: The First Avenger. So let's just recap quickly, and tell you what Captain America was about. Steve Rogers, a rejected military soldier, transforms into Captain America after taking a dose of super soldier serum. Say that one 10 times fast. But being Captain America comes with a price, as he attempts to take down a warmonger and a terrorist organization. And that organization, as we all know, is Hydra. So for the first movie, I mean, Speedy G, initially, what were your thoughts? How did you go? I mean, what do you remember? What do you take from it? And what are you glad that they covered from a comic book standpoint, especially?
I kind of liked half the movie, to be honest, with that. I felt the second half of the film didn't deliver. That's my personal. I enjoyed his journey to becoming Captain America, but once he went off to war, I don't know, it just kind of fell flat. I don't think they utilized the Red Skull as well as they could have, considering what a major villain he was. I don't know, it got lost a little in the second half. So that's why I don't consider it one of my favorites. Is the first part I love. The whole thing of him being so small, and how he becomes Captain America, and how he's picked, and his heart, and he doesn't give up. All those things are great. That sets the stage for this character we have now that is in Civil War. You know, when you look back and see where he's come from, it really gives you some foundation of who he is. So I really love the first half, to be honest.
I would agree with part of that. I do think that the second half does tail off a little bit, and that I wanted more interaction with Red Skull. He kind of went away too quickly. And you're right, the opening was brilliant. That was the first time they used that CGI effect to make Chris Evans look like 13 years old, man, just skinny and weak and frail, and that was in its own right. That was pretty amazing, and they've used that process since. But I loved seeing where he was a fighter to begin with. He had the heart to do it all. We're introduced to Peggy Carter, which I love.
Oh, the supporting cast in that film.
The supporting cast
amazing.
Is great. The guys who play all the other characters, maybe you can name them off if you remember them all.
What's Dominique's last name? The guy who plays Howard Stark. He is a favorite of mine. I watch Agent Carter because of him, and of course, Hallie Atwell. But he's awesome. He is an awesome Howard Stark. The Howard Stark that comes out in the Iron Man movies, and the one who showed up in Ant-Man, he's a shitty Howard Stark. That guy's a grumpy old drunk. I don't like him. The Howard Stark that's in the Captain America movie and the Agent, he's happy. He's cooler than Tony is. Dad is cooler than Tony is, if you ask me.
Right. Well, young Stark. Yeah, young
Yes.
Dad. He's like the cool uncle in
what happened,
these Captain Americas.
You know what happened is a woman trapped him and he had Tony, and then he got grumpy.
Very funny. Very funny. But again, like you said, so I actually liked it a bit more than you did. It is one of my favorite movies, but not top echelon. I enjoyed it very much. Definitely for the recommend. And I thought it was a great... I mean, going into it, I knew it was going to be completely a setup piece. Okay? And the way they finished it off was probably my favorite part. Now, I'm not talking about, him fighting Red Skull and ending up in the ice and all that. I'm talking about his revival into today's society so we could have the Captain America that we have today.
Yeah.
They tried to fool him with a game on the radio. It's my favorite part because it's also a Dodger game, even though it was the Brooklyn Dodgers. It was a baseball game on the radio that he was actually at, so it couldn't be on the radio. How was that possible? So, a great moment as far as the movies are concerned.
Yeah, and the ending of him sacrificing himself, that was done really well, and
Yep.
and it really did create an emotion. In that first season of Agent Carter, you did feel a connection when she realizes, that Cap's gone, and she goes through that whole thing herself. And I'm looking forward to Civil War, the kind of the end of the Peggy Carter Captain America story. So yeah, there's a lot to like in the first movie, but it's just like that middle, the whole villain. DC, I mean not DC, Marvel and their villains, man. They just don't seem to quite get their villains right.
Well, I think I liked the actor who played him, and I thought he had a
It's
great
not the actor's
role.
fault.
Yeah, I just thought he would. It was one of those that he went away too quickly. It's kind of like I call it Darth Maul syndrome. They didn't expect Darth Maul to be so popular and so cool with the double-bladed lightsaber, and he was gone in one movie. As a Star Wars fan, I know, but I know you can't. How do you keep him? But as a Star Wars fan, you want to keep him going forever.
That's not what I meant. The problem is you can't do that with Red Skull because you already did know he was very popular.
Right.
Darth Maul was something created for that movie, and they didn't know what they had. The Red Skull's been around since we were little kids. So they do know what they have, so they should have known better.
You probably should have held on to him a little longer, or at least just maybe
not.
You
don't kill the Joker. You don't kill the Red Skull. All those things like that.
Yeah, for sure. Agreed. So now, this first movie, as it pertains to the rest of the MCU and to where how do you think that they made Captain America himself? Strip yourself away from the movie and your thoughts and your opinions of it, but from a comic book standpoint, how do you think that, and not just in creating him, where do you think that Captain America stood after that first movie as far as Chris Evans playing him? Did they do him justice? I mean, what were your thoughts on that?
Like I said, I think they did the first one, the first half, and then we went into Avengers, and I think Joss Whedon didn't quite give Cap the love he needed. He had him playing second fiddle to Iron Man too much in that movie for my liking. He just didn't seem assertive. He didn't seem badass in the Avengers movie. He kind of
right. But besides the Avengers,
well, I'm just saying where they went with him. So I don't think we got the real Captain America, in my opinion. Okay, we got him a little bit like he was a little like skinny guy and he became Captain America. That part was cool, but after that, we didn't get the real Captain America, in my opinion, until Winter Soldier.
Okay.
It's not till Winter Soldier that I start seeing Captain America, the Captain America I know and love. So the second half of the first Avengers movie, of the first Captain America movie and the Avengers movie, I don't think they did him justice. He wasn't the Cap that you feel that we have now. The Cap that we have now is like a badass Cap.
Well, so let me ask you this. So that leads me to my next question. So do you think that as the first Avenger movie, could you have dealt with another Captain America before present day? Or are you glad that they moved it up to present day? Did you want more of that interaction with his group and more missions and things like that? Could you have taken another movie that way? In other words, if let's say there was another movie, yeah.
Oh yeah, and if they could have incorporated like the Submariner, goes back with that time period with him, that would have been sweet too. They could have done a lot. But I get it. They needed to get moving for the Avengers. That's not my fault. My fault is he just wasn't. I don't know. He just wasn't quite the badass that he needed to be. Because he was already a badass by the time he dies at the end of World War II. So he should be a badass already for the Avengers. Yes, he's kind of still feeling his way, but I think he got no action. Hawkeye got better action than he did. It seemed like, in the Avengers movie. And he didn't get great action either, but it's another thing.
Yeah, cool.
But yeah, as it pertains, I haven't seen Civil War yet, of course, but one thing that I talked about last week about the comics is what's important to me, and I don't know if it's going to happen with this, is, okay, Spider-Man starts with Tony because they have that affinity because they're science people, because he's kind of a science kid, and that's why he's kind of with Reed and he's with Tony. But the difference is they are scientists where Peter likes science. Peter is more like Captain America, because think about it, and they've had these discussions before. he can relate. Like Peter asked, so did you get beat up as a kid? There's a comic where he asked Captain America, did you get beat up as a kid? And Cap's like, yeah, a lot. You see where they both came from the same place? They were both little guys. They were pushed around. They were picked on. And then they were given these great powers. And that defines who they are. We've been given these things and we have a responsibility to do something with these. But to me, Iron Man is a rich guy who had everything and developed everything with his money and all his resources. And he's a cocky son of a bitch. And he's going to force his agenda because he thinks he's right. So that's where I stand with Cap. That's why I'm Team Cap, because I think Cap is a hero, where Tony is just a dude that has lots of money in a suit.
Cool. Gotcha. Cool. Well, what else can you say about Captain America, the first Avenger specifically, before we start to move on?
I don't have much else on that one. Like I said, told you I like the cast. Yeah, I mean, it was interesting, I guess, the way they set Bucky up.
I was going to get to that next. I was going to ask your opinion on Bucky, because obviously he continues on, not only in the next movie, but obviously in the future, and we'll talk about him next week. So, how did you feel about this character, Bucky, and how
he's nothing like the comics in that movie.
So that's a good point. So, what are some of the differences that you can tell us about?
He's a little boy. He's like Robin. Because you got to remember that era was all about the little boy sidekick. That's around the time you got Robin. And, the little sidekicks that heroes were getting. So, Cap, he was a young boy. He wasn't a man. And kind of crazy. Here you are, you're taking this young boy without powers out to do all these missions with you. And, Bucky gets killed. So it's kind of Cap makes a mistake and gets Bucky killed, It's more like the Batman story of, how Batman gets Robin killed by putting him in a position he shouldn't have put him in. So very different, where in this one, he's a grown man, they're best friends. He's more of a badass than Cap is until Cap gets the serum, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I wouldn't tell him a badass, but he could handle himself, at least to that point. You know what I mean?
He's a tough guy. He's a big guy. He's decorated in the military. He's not Captain America, but he didn't have the serum.
Very true. Very true. Very cool. All right. Well, I think that probably takes care of at least us talking about the first Avenger. So we should probably move on into one we probably are going to talk about a little more. At least I hope we are. And that is Captain America: Winter Soldier. I'll give you a quick recap of that here quickly. As Steve Rogers struggles to embrace his role in the modern world, he teams up with a fellow Avenger and S.H.I.E.L.D. agent, the Black Widow, to battle a new threat from history, the assassin known as the Winter Soldier. So, real quickly, let's just start it off. What was your opinion on this movie as far as, from a comic book standpoint, and how you felt about it, how much you enjoyed it?
I loved it. The only Marvel movie I like more is Guardians. But with that said, this is the best superhero movie of that Marvel's made. Because Guardians is a little different thing. It's kind of like a Star Wars-y, different kind of thing. But this is the first time Marvel got it right, if you ask me. This is when I got excited. I've watched all the other movies. I've enjoyed the movies. They create the universe. And even Avengers was kind of hokey here and there. And a little clunky in places. But it was cool because it was the first time it happened. But this was the first time someone got it, I felt like. I loved the Black Widow in this movie. I loved the Winter Soldier, the way it was done. And I told you, this is when Cap finally was a badass. He finally was like, the way he kicks the shit from the opening scene, he jumps right out of the plane and he beats the shit out of everybody on that boat. That was the Captain America I've been looking for. That's like, yes.
Yeah, this was clearly up into, like I said, we're still trying to figure that all out. We'll talk about that next week. My favorite film of the Cap series and of the MCU. I thought between the political intrigue and what you just touched on, which was Cap being a really big time badass, finally taking the lead, taking point, and trying to understand where he fits in this new world, especially with S.H.I.E.L.D. And this was, again, keep this in mind, this is the fall of S.H.I.E.L.D. in this movie. and that was huge to me. This is where we got our first look at what would soon be Crossbones. Um, this movie had everything. I think you're exactly right. It dealt with the friendship between he and the Winter Soldier, who we find out later. No spoilers necessarily here. If you don't know, you're in big trouble. That the Winter Soldier is Bucky, still alive and being brainwashed. So this again. I remember leaving this one, and this was one of those that I needed to see again and again. I wanted to see every little minute detail. What did Hydra had left? How did Hydra infiltrate S.H.I.E.L.D. in the first place? Captain America just putting all the pieces together on his own and just going almost rogue. Pretty much going rogue. Yeah. Saying, screw this. I know this isn't right.
It had tendencies of what Civil War was.
Exactly.
I feel like they brought it in there, that storyline. S.H.I.E.L.D. kind of was the government, and they were kind of trying to control Cap, and he went rogue, and yeah, he has Black Widow with him on his team. He has Falcon on his team. Maria Hill and Fury. They're kind of doing their own thing. Yeah, it's an amazing movie.
Fury at the time is following orders, at least at the time to start this movie. He's following orders, and he's a little wishy-washy on it too. If we remember and think back to the movie, he wasn't quite sold on it. He had his own little backdoor plans himself. But my favorite line in this movie, actually, it's when I felt that he was most Captain America. And the line goes, is Nick Fury is finally showing Steve Rogers the new helicarriers. And talking to them about the tracking system, and they're using some of that technology. And he says, Cap says, this is not freedom. And that's that right there. I'm like, that's Captain America. We finally got,
And that sets the stage for, I know you've seen it, but to me it sets the stage. This is why he doesn't believe in registration and the government control and the sanctions they want to put on heroes. Because just like he wants freedom for the average Joe, he feels that heroes should be given the freedom to be heroes as they see fit. Not instruments of a government, because then the government decides who's good and bad, and that's not the government's choice. That's their choice. So, I love Cap. I could talk forever and ever on Cap. And that's, he's Spider. To me, he's like Spider-Man's big grown-up brother,
I like that thought. No, this, again, clearly my favorite movie as of, our conversation now. I think it actually leapfrogs several other movies in the MCU, and I've said this I said this way back when we kind of first started our podcast, and we did our Sinister Six, and we talked about looking forward to the movies coming out this summer, especially Civil War, and I said that Civil War would be, it has to be and should be probably the bookend to one of the best trilogies in the MCU, and that's the Captain America trilogy.
Well, you would know that because you've seen it or not, but I've heard a lot of story that they want to do a fourth one. They want to actually do a bookend. That they don't consider, that the Russos don't really consider this the bookend to the story. That they had a different kind of story in mind how to finish this up.
Yeah. And I'll say it straight up.
If Evans is up for it and all this other stuff, then they may do the bookend.
Yeah, he's saying he's up for it. Last I saw, he said that he was up for actually continuing to be a Captain America. Now, where that fits into the whole MCU, I'm not quite sure. But
you want to know
I can't discuss the other stuff. We have to wait till next week.
But you know what probably happened? I'm going to guess is like I said. What's it called? The first one was kind of and the Avengers didn't give him his true due. He probably was like, you know what? I'm not into this series. And then he probably did he did Winter Soldier and got that script and he probably walked away from it like, well, if they keep doing this kind of stuff with me, I'll come back and make some more movies. And maybe that's when his attitude changed about it all. Is it was like, if you give me some more of this, I'll suit up and I'll do some more. It's just what he was getting before maybe just was like, I'm done. I did it and I'm out. This isn't really, there's no meat to it,
I could see that. No, I definitely could see Chris Evans being lured back in by the fact that, they're giving him a more prominent stance in this last two movies.
Interesting, and showing his chops. And I'm all for him directing a Captain America movie.
Well, he keeps talking about that. I mean, I wonder how that would work. Star and direct kind of thing.
You've seen pictures of the new Avengers in comics. The new Avengers in comics have Bucky, the Winter Soldier's a member, and the new Captain America, which is the Falcon becomes Captain America. He could direct when he's done being Captain America. He could direct those two as Captain America.
Yeah, that was kind of my thought. But I don't think he'd want to direct himself. He wouldn't do like a Mel Gibson Braveheart kind of thing.
But he may do like a tiny little piece, like where he kind of hands the shield off, or they come to him for advice. Maybe he does a scene. Like, he may be doing that. That wouldn't shock me. I know a lot of, Ben Affleck does it.
Yeah. These are great predictions. So, okay, let me ask you this. So now that we've gotten to these two movies and we have them as a pair, how do you see them as a pair the way they fit into the MCU? Now, we can't add Civil War right now, but, I mean, if you need to, talk about how they fit into what we already have to go with it, like maybe even a little bit of Iron Man, stuff like that. How do they all fit together? How do you see this as a piece?
Well, that's what, if you watch the 3 Iron Man movies, I think you get a really good understanding of Iron Man's point of view in Civil War 2. I haven't seen it just from the trailers. So you can kind of see, okay, Iron Man is this guy who had it all. He's going through this crisis. He has daddy issues. He has all kinds of, Iron Man has some problems. He's the rich kid who's had everything but love. It's the best way I can describe it. So, he lashes out. And then he almost dies in the Avenger movie. So I don't know until I see Civil War. I'm trying to figure out his motivation for some of his crazy ideas. He's the one that consistently makes the bad choices. He built Ultron. You know what I mean? It wasn't Cap. Cap didn't do any of these things. So it's like, okay, we built Ultron and we couldn't control the Hulk, and so therefore we should all regulate superheroes. And Cap's all, why? You're part of the problem. Regulate yourself. So I like the arc of how they've kind of gone this different way, and you've kind of seen this building with the two of them.
Yeah.
How different they are. As it belongs in the universe, Cap's the moral compass. I guess that's the most important thing. And I really wish, and I like that Holland said he wishes that Captain America was in the Spider-Man movie, because I really would like more Captain America interaction with Spider-Man than Iron Man interaction. And I know everyone, again, I haven't seen the film, and we'll see what it's like, and they may make a whole different kind of Tony-Peter relationship. But to me, a true mentor for Spider-Man is Captain America. It's not Tony.
Right.
Tony's an egomaniac. An egomaniac doesn't teach. Spider-Man has the biggest heart in the world. And so his mentor needs to be somebody who has that moral compass, and that's Cap. So that's where I feel it falls in the universe. And then it's hard to say, because the other movies are kind of out there. Like Thor is its own unique thing. Other than when he's with the Avengers, I don't really think of Thor in the context of Iron Man and Cap. They're here on the Earth and they're doing things on Earth. The same thing goes for the Guardians of the Galaxy. It's something completely out there. And then the Hulk movie is kind of, I don't know where that kind of fits in things, because different. They changed actors, all kinds of things fell apart on that movie. So,
right. No,
it's got Ant-Man. Yeah, Ant-Man works. Ant-Man is, that's why I think they turned the corner. I like the Ant-Man movie. I think the Ant-Man is one of the better, where Marvel learned their lesson, and they're doing it a little better. So I like the Ant-Man movie probably more than I like the Thor movies or the Hulk movie, and probably more than Iron Man 2. So.
Yeah, you really rail on that one, and I actually had no problem with Iron Man 2. It was Iron Man 3, I think, that you would really think was horrible. That one was so bad.
But Iron Man 3, I guess maybe I was so jaded.
That's, you know what? That's a Speedy G possibility. I'm going to say that right now.
That I was like, well, they've already goofed him. I just think they could have done a lot. They were on the right path with Iron Man 2, and then it kind of went off the rails. Maybe that's why I'm more upset, because I saw potential. I didn't see potential in the third one. I was like,
no, the third one was crazy.
Iron Man, Pepper Potts.
Yeah, that was at least they recovered it from some point. Okay, let's, now that we've kind of recapped the Captain America series here. Let's talk a little bit about where he fits in, or how you thought he changed from the Avengers to Age of Ultron. Because clearly in Age of Ultron, we saw the split forming. They had a whole scene on it, and I thought that was a great scene as they're hiding away, a la Ninja Turtle style, back on the farm. So how do you think, like I said, do you think in those group movies that they let him be who he should be to set this up?
Yeah. In the third one, I think it was real. I mean, in Ultron, it was really there.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it would have been there if the Russos didn't make Civil War and kind of force that direction. You understand what I mean? So
Yeah.
the character was already taken to this level over here, this badass place. And if they tried to take him backwards, it would have been a horrible mistake. So maybe Whedon was kind of, I don't think on his own would have been taking Cap there.
Right.
It seems like, he is fixated on Black Widow, and he's fixated on Iron Man. That seems to be the characters he really spent a lot of his time on. And it's interesting, he wasn't fixated on either Cap or Hawkeye, and I still don't think he's given Hawkeye his complete due. That whole family storyline, don't get me started. But you're right, it sets it up more, and I like it because you see, how Wanda attaches herself to him, how Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch attach themselves. Like, they trust him. They don't know why, but they trust him. Despite all the stuff the Avengers have done, it's like, it's something about this guy. I feel like I could trust him, and I feel like I could let him lead me. Where there's no way they want to, be under Tony, and then they show up, and there's Tony trying to hook up, Vision and turn the Vision, and he's just doing crazy shit. It's like, he's like, I'm a scientist, so therefore I know more than all the rest of you, and I'm going to do it. And you're just seeing these cracks of Captain America, like saying, what are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? But he lets Tony still be Tony, and then Tony, again, I haven't seen the movie, but I'm guessing from the previews, Tony comes to him and says, well, then we have to do it this way. And Cap's like, you're not going to tell me what to do. You, of all people, are not going to tell me what to do. So.
It's a good assessment, but it remains to be seen. I can't tell you whether you're right or you are wrong. But guess what? I know the answer.
Well, you know what's crazy? And we talked about none of those guys on his team would be on his team if this wasn't a movie and they had to split it up nice.
Right.
There's no way Black Panther would side with Tony Stark and his ego. And he's smart as Tony Stark too, so he doesn't have to. There's no way. Spider-Man gets bamboozled, but then he goes like, whoa, what am I thinking? The Vision's not with him. The only people that stay with him is War Machine, because they're best friends before this.
Right. But it was, like I say, it's something we get to discuss next week, and I can't wait, because I know that I am going to see it again as far as Civil War goes. Let's wrap up a little bit about these first two movies. Again, I think from my standpoint, I'm going to give you my quick opinion, and I can't say it enough. It's my favorite part of the MCU. Less maybe Guardians of the Galaxy. We got a second one to go. That was an awesome movie. But the storyline and his arc are my favorite. I think they're clearly better than the Iron Man story. Although Iron Man 1 and, like I said, I enjoyed 2. Those were good movies. So much, I just wish, we were there yet, but I'm glad we had a chance to talk about these two tonight. Where, any final thoughts on where you'd like to set these movies and what you're looking forward to next week, or at least the next podcast, because you'll have seen Civil War?
It's not about Cap, because I think that story is going to be fine. I'm not concerned about that. To me, it's going to be more about, I'm concerned about Spider-Man, Black Panther. That's really what I'm concerned about. I want them. I want Ant-Man to get his due, and I want Hawkeye to get their due, because they're cool characters. But these other Spider-Man and Black Panther are bigger characters, and I really want them to get the love they deserve to set up their own movies. So, that's my big thing. More than I know, Cap's going to be fine. I know Evans is going to deliver. The previews can show me that. The trailers.
Right.
I'm not going to worry about that.
Well,
as for the other films, like I said, I think Winter Soldier's in my top 5 of all comic book movies. The first one, not so much. It's not that high. But Winter Soldier's one of the best comic book movies.
If it's top 5, just out of curiosity, can you tell me what's ahead of it?
Oh, yeah, my top 5?
Yeah.
Number one is Spider-Man 2.
That's the Tobey Maguire?
Yes, that's Tobey Maguire with Doc Ock. Number
Hmm.
two is The Dark
Hmm.
Knight, Christopher Nolan's Dark Knight. Number three is The Incredibles, best Fantastic Four movie ever made. Number four, this is where I'll get some argument because not everyone likes it, but number four for me is Guardians of the Galaxy. It just brought me back to Indiana Jones, Star Wars. It just captured the magic in a way that I just loved it. And then number five is Winter Soldier. So if Civil War is that good, the one it's going to knock out of my top five is going to be Winter Soldier because that's in the number five spot.
Wow.
So that could end up at six, and then Civil War will be somewhere mixed in that five, depending on.
And you honestly don't think the Avengers movie belongs anywhere in that top five?
Not in my top five. There was things it was good. I think, you know what? If that Avengers movie had come out now, I don't think it would have done as well. Like, I think that's part of some of the things that DC's going through, is the bar is now so high. You look back at some of those Phase 1 Marvel movies, and there's lots of little like problems here and there, but it was new and it was fresh, and we were finally getting these characters on screen, and we forgave a lot of stuff.
Right. I honestly, I go ahead.
I fell asleep watching that Avengers movie. It comes on now and then, and I put it on. I can't even make it through the whole movie. And that's kind of, like I told you, one of the things to be in my top five, if I come across you on TV, I stay and I watch it. And those other five I've told you, I've probably watched each of those 100 times. You know, they're on HBO or whatever I'm watching, and one of those is on, I'm watching it.
Right. And
that's the big difference between Avengers doesn't do that for me. None of the other movies have really done that for me. They're on all the time on TV, and I'll change the channel. They don't hold me the way, but yeah.
Gotcha.
Now, Suicide Squad also has a chance to change that whole world.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah, those are movies yet to come, and who knows what Apocalypse, X-Men Apocalypse will bring. I don't know. I think Winter Soldier would probably be a little higher on my list, and Avengers would definitely be in there. Guardians of the Galaxy would be in there. Yeah, I could see that.
Don't forget the oldies but the goodies, man. Like
no, I won't. I mean, a Dark Knight is definitely. Dark Knight would probably be number 1 or 2. That's
like the second half of my top five is very DC heavy. They just kind of, and some of the older stuff like the first Michael Keaton Batman is high on my list.
Oh, those are great.
Things of that. Some of the independent stuff, like I like Hellboy. Some things to do.
And I like the Hellboy movies. Of course, there's Blade. I enjoyed Blade.
Yes, Blade is in my top 10.
We could keep going. This is a whole other podcast all of a sudden. I think we're roaming off. We're probably going to wrap it up. Hey, but you know what, Speedy G, I can't get away from today's podcast without talking about something, because this is the first podcast that we've done since it happened, and you kind of touched on it here just a second ago when you mentioned the movie Batman. If you guys don't know it already, my high school life back in the day, and I want to share this with whoever may come across it, had everything to do with Prince. And so I wanted to just send a heartfelt so long and goodbye. It even it makes me a little teary-eyed that he is gone. But I think a lot of people, and maybe younger kids today, don't realize that he did the, not the score, but the soundtrack for that first Michael Keaton Batman. There were some crazy, amazing Prince songs that helped Jack Nicholson be the Joker in that movie. And there was a couple of articles. You posted a great article about how more than anybody, and I believe Kevin Smith was the one that said it, understood the dichotomy between Batman and the Joker. So he will, in my eyes, I wanted to mention him because he will definitely be missed.
Well, it's funny because I thought about that too, and it's kind of hard to explain to kids in this generation that have access to everything at their fingertips. But
right.
Going back to when that movie came out, there was no internet. There was cable by then, but there's not a lot. So you saw a trailer in the movie theater, or you may have seen a commercial, okay, about this upcoming Batman movie.
Right.
So you didn't see a lot. So the way you got a lot about this movie, a lot of footage, and got it in your face, was MTV Prince videos.
Yep.
And that video was in heavy rotation, which means it probably was played every hour. So the average person probably saw that twice a day, that video. And so, Jack Nicholson is in that video. There's footage from the movie in that video. The colors, the way Prince is dressed up.
He's split right down the middle.
That was a huge thing of helping that movie become what it was. It became a cultural phenomenon because it was mixed with this very important artist. And he was kind of coming off of some bad albums too. Where, Prince fans may not call them bad albums, but they weren't.
No bad Prince albums.
They weren't as critically successful. He was in a weird experimental phase, and those albums didn't do well.
Right.
And then this album really went off, and part of it was the combination of this movie. We're getting a Batman movie, and then his music. It just matched really well to Tim Burton's vision, and it really gave someone like me a chance to see it again and again, because there was no other way to see it. Like now we can go, and right after this I can go see Civil War footage all over the damn place.
Right.
I just Google it all over and we can just watch it. There wasn't that option. But with that video, I could see the movie, a little piece of the movie again the next day or whatever. So it stayed in my conscience. So it was a big deal. It helped that movie. And yeah. And then one other Prince thing I wanted to tell you last week, and I forgot, when we were talking about the comics. I told you that T'Challa and Storm get married in their the first Black Panther comic of Civil War. It's about the wedding. Prince plays their wedding.
No. Tell me that this is illustrated somewhere.
No, he's not illustrated.
Oh.
They have what's his name from who was with MTV and he's on MSN right now. Why can't I?
Is it Kurt Loder or somebody?
No, it's not Loder. It's the guy. Oh, what's the black guy?
God, I know who you're talking about. I know he's got that Brillo pad kind of dude.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Anyway, they have him, and he's talking about it, and Prince is playing it. And the other thing, and I'm looking for it, I don't know where it is. I have a Prince comic. There was a comic book line called Rock and Roll Comics that came out, and they did, I don't know, maybe 15 comics, and I got them all. And I don't know why. They were inexpensive, so I'd pick them up whenever I went. And the only one that's really worth anything is the first one. It's Guns N' Roses. But I have a Prince one. And I wanted to show you it, but I don't know where the hell it is.
Dude, if there's a Prince one, I guarantee you that is now the best-selling comic there.
I don't know. None of these are. The story is like if you took Wikipedia.
It has nothing to do with the story.
And you illustrated Wikipedia, that's kind of like how bad these comics are.
It's still a comic that was about him, so that was cool. So, again, I don't want to take up the whole end of the podcast you're talking about, but I did want to take note that I am sad about his passing, but as Prince would want us to do, we're going to celebrate the future. I have been listening to his music constantly, and if you are a kid and you're watching this show, please listen to some Prince music. Do not forget about this person, this man, this everything. He was awesome. Cool? What do you think?
Yeah, I just wanted to talk real fast. Free comic book days this Saturday.
Yeah, I was going to say.
I'm going to hit the shops here in town, so if anyone's roaming around, any of our local followers, say hi if you recognize me. I'm not seeing you, so I'm not sure. But yeah, my daughter and I are going to hit the shops.
Do you know which ones you're probably going to go to?
I don't. For sure, we're going to hit Heroes and Villains, but I don't know. What was the other one that I wanted to hit? I'm not remembering. Fantasy. I want to hit Fantasy. They look like they're going to have a lot going on too. It'll just depend how much stamina my daughter has, if she's up for it, how many shops we'll hit.
Well, very cool.
But it'll be a fun weekend.
I'm hoping to be involved in something completely different, my daughter's softball team, but that's a whole other story. But if you do take some pictures, let us know how it goes. And if you see Speedy G out there, definitely say hi if you're a local. Mm-hmm. If not, Free Comic Book Day. Find your local comic book store, get out there and read. Don't just go into the theater. Make sure you are reading, too.
It's a great way to meet some other comic book fans, reconnect or connect with them, get some free comics, buy some comics, buy some other swag. I mean, it's a lot of fun. I know some of the places, Fantasy, for example, here in town is going to do some cosplaying contests. It should be a good day. Mix that in with going to see Civil War this weekend. it's a good comic book.
It's going to be great. And yes, don't forget, since you said it, next week, our huge Civil War podcast. We can finally talk about it. I've been sitting on, I don't know if it's good or bad that I've already seen it. I've been sitting on my hands, keeping my mouth shut.
Oh, it's so bad for you. I feel for you. I have lots of empathy.
It is hard. It is hard to do. Let me tell you. By the way, we put a poll on our Twitter. How's that poll doing? Last I saw, one of the options.
It was all people that saw it.
Last I saw.
Fans. Our followers that are from abroad.
That's
they've
right.
Seen it like last week sometime.
I like that. So definitely. Okay, if you're checking us out for the first time, please don't forget to hit that subscribe button. If you'd like to check us out on Twitter, we are constantly active on our Twitter account as well. That is at real_podcast on the Twitter feed. Also, today we just launched on Facebook. We're going to really start getting into that one too. That one is titled The Real Comics Podcast, and then we're talking REEL Comics Podcast. Check that one out for the latest stuff and information as well. We are looking to take over the social media universe. Our blog is next, so look for that next. We got a lot going on. We're going to put out some more top fives, some more reel shots, and we are just excited to bring it to you guys. So please subscribe. Look for us on your social media wherever you can. We can't thank you enough for those who tune in and offer us your support and subscribe as well. So, I guess it's time to say goodnight, Speedy G.
Good night.
Good night, everybody. And as always, please remember to be your own hero, and happy May the 4th be with you. Night, guys.
Revenge of the 5th.
We'll see you guys. Peace. Later. Bye, Prince.